Howdy, guys. Welcome. I'm going to run and grab a drink real quick. I'll be right back. All right, welcome, September. Hi, Anne-Marie. Yeah, different background every time, right? Today I'm on my lawyer hat, so I'm in the lawyer office today. Yesterday I was in the car traveling with my winter coat and my cowboy hat, so I was a cowboy yesterday. Yeah, rough day, absolutely. It's going to be a rough period of time. There's some good coming out of today, though, too. Hello. All right, I see the hearts coming already. That's great. All right. You have to forgive me if I look older than usual today. I I don't think I've slept since the last two periscopes ago, when you saw me interview Ammon Bundy out there at the refuge. And today's been a big full day of legal work. I've promised you, and I talked last night about doing a follow-up to the show last night, and I wanted to talk about where we go from here, and the sincere questions that people were asking about the cause of liberty. And look, I've got mixed feelings today. Obviously, I'm still mourning, as are many of you, this tragic event and this loss. You can see the essay that I wrote on freecapitalist.com. There's been plenty of hand-wringing about that and plenty of analysis for where we are in that. I also have been working to do the best I can to reach out and help with the legal defense, because this is a whole different kind of battle and a whole different kind of reality when you're sitting in jail and you're facing federal prison time. And so I'm a little subdued. I figure if I start off a little subdued, we might be able to crescendo up to where we need to be. As some of you saw last night, I was getting a little worked up. Here's the thing, my friends. Let me just speak real soberly to you, if that's all right. Let me speak real directly to you. As you can tell by the white hair in my beard, I've been around a little bit. And I'm not as old as some, but I'm much older than many of you. And I've been involved in this battle for liberty and freedom in a lot of different ways for a lot of different time, as I know some of you have. And I've been involved in everything from campaigning for political parties to raising money for political parties. For those of you who don't know me, know my story, I've raised millions of dollars for federal and state candidates for elective office. Several years ago, there wasn't a major presidential candidate that hadn't come to my state and either sat foot in my living room or came to my business to ask for money and support and the help of our organization. Some of you know I've had friends in high places and I've had enemies in high places. I've gone from being very popular in the world of politics and the world of finance, rubbing shoulders with all the names you know in those industries. And I've gone from that to being a pariah when the government came after me and when it took everything, my family, my money, my reputation, and to the point where every day when I went to bed I had to look at my children and I wondered if the next day I wasn't going to be Lavoy Finicum, dead, either by a heart attack or by a bullet to the head. I have lived my life wondering if I was ever relevant in some dark days, to knowing that I had so much power and influence that I could change a lot with just the stroke of my pen. The reason I tell you all that, and it's mostly for those of you who don't know me, is during all of that time whenever there's a tragedy or a crisis like what's happened up at the refuge, and things get brought to a head, whenever there's current event that causes people to really evaluate liberty and causes people to really evaluate where they are, the same question comes. And it would be funny, you wouldn't believe it. It comes from the question is, what do we do? Where do we go? Some people are so worked up they're ready to shoot back. And that's not bad, but it's got to be smart. And some people get so depressed they're willing to give up, and they think it's all futile, and they don't want to be a participant anymore. And that's not bad, because it prompts us to focus. In between those broad spectrums, I've seen this happen over and over and over, where good men and women who want to stand up for liberty feel helpless, or feel discouraged, or feel like the only options in front of us are not good options. And I have to tell you that that's not the case. I want to share with you tonight some very powerful ideas in the cause of liberty. I want to share with you some things about what we do going forward from here. And I want to answer some of the questions that you all were asking me last night about what is it that we can accomplish? How can we actually make a successful venture here? You know, one of the challenges is when you see Am and Bundy go to prison, when you see Lavoie dead, and you see the police, and you start to get into the drama, and everybody knows, oh man, the FBI is going to tell one story, and the victims over here are going to tell a different story, and this witness is going to tell this story. It's no different now than a presidential election where it's just noise, and it gets to be just noise, and you look around your life, and you look at your children, and you look at your spouse, and you look at your loved ones, and you look at your home, and you look at your cars, and you say, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I want to answer that question more concretely tonight, my friends, than many of you have ever had anyone answer it. Because I want to tell you some hard truths, and I hope at the end of the day to motivate you. I hope at the end of the day you walk away and say, this was the best hour I could have spent watching this on Periscope. I hope you'll invite your friends, and I hope if you miss a part of this, that you will rewind it and watch it again. Because I want to share with you a key, if you will, that I have paid for, and it has not been cheap. I want to give you two stories just to start off with. I want to give you a story about a meeting I had with John McCain shortly after he decided to run for president. Now, whatever you think of John McCain, even if you know who John McCain is, some people think he stands for liberty, some people don't think he stands for liberty. Some people think he's a good politician, some people think... I don't leave all that aside for a minute. Here's a person who's been in the United States Senate for a long time. One of the most powerful political people ever to be in modern times on the face of the earth. People like he and Orrin Hatch, they're fixtures in the most powerful political body in our country, and they are very influential. And I was invited because I had money, and they were looking for young people who had money and could raise money. They wanted to raise millions of dollars to support his campaign. And I know how that game works better than most. And I got invited, and I was in a group of maybe 50 people that narrowed down to about, 10 people. And we were all sitting around a room at the Little America Hotel in Salt Lake City with the governor of the state of Utah, his wife, John McCain. John McCain's wife wasn't there. And a small group of what some people call the donor class. And John McCain was asking us basically what he needed to do to get our support for him to run for president. And we started to talk about the problems of the day. We started to talk about things like immigration. We started to talk about things like the budget deficit. We started to talk about things like taxes. We started talking about the declining prosperity of America. We started to talk about all those things. And it was interesting as I sat back and watched. Here's a man who's hailed as a war hero. Here's a man who's been in the Senate for a long time. Here's a man who has the gall to come here and say, hey, would you give me money to become president of the United States? And he's like a little boy. He doesn't know any answers to any questions. One of my friends asked him a question about how to solve the illegal immigration problem, and he didn't have any policy answers at all. And I studied public policy at the university, right? When I went to the University of Denver, I was a public policy major. I knew a thing or two about policy even back in those days. And it was weird that here's this man. He was like the emperor's new clothes. He knows nothing. He knows nothing. And he was rude about it. And he laughed it off. It reminds me of another time, a very similar situation. Senator John Allen came out from Virginia. And my friend Les McGuire, before he was tragically killed, asked him in front of everybody, including in front of Senator Hatch, what he thought of the 17th Amendment. Because, see, there's a whole movement out there of us liberty-loving people who think we're going to solve the world's problem by repealing the 17th Amendment. There's a whole group of us in the liberty movement out there that thinks we're going to solve the world's problem by getting rid of the Federal Reserve and abolishing the 16th Amendment. There's a whole group of liberty people that have all these different strategies, none of which are working, by the way. None of which is accomplishing anything. And the cause of liberty is getting weaker and weaker. And people like Lavoie are still dead. And the tyranny of the government still grows. But I'm sharing a couple stories with you to help dial you in to some ideas and some consequences. Because most of you I know, within the sound of my voice, haven't had some of these experiences. And I always wished I could have them. I always wished I could be the person. Greetings from Tacoma. That's awesome. I always wish I could have I wanted to rub shoulders with the powers, with the great leaders. And I was surprised when I did to find out just how not great these men and women were. I have met a few great men and women. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm trying to say is the answers to what we do and where we go from here, they're not answers that the most powerful senators in the United States know. Matter of fact, you take a person like the governor of Oregon, this incompetent woman who clearly should never hold a position of public trust, who could not solve this problem and put this pressure on the government to bring an end to this standoff, and who chose an end clearly that was favoring violence. You look at these people, they're people in power, and you look in the mirror and you think to yourself, sometimes you feel powerless, and you start to get deceived, my friends, because we live in a world where you've been trained, taught, and educated to think like a slave, to feel like a slave. And a lot of the responses you're experiencing that you and I kind of are naturally feeling when we see this tragedy, whether we're watching Hillary Clinton's email scandal, or whether we're wondering whether Bernie Sanders really is a socialist and whether that's bad for America, or whether you're looking at the death of Lavoie and the imprisonment of Ammon and Ryan and these people, whether you're looking at all that, you're asking yourself, what power do I have? What power do I have to really make a difference, to really make a change? And we've got to answer that question, my friends, because, see, let me tell you the truth about this standoff up in Oregon. It's a sobering reality check for those of us in the liberty movement. Because Oath Keepers offered no solutions. The other patriot groups offered no solutions. The politicians that came and visited offered no solutions. The random militia offered no solutions. There were many good men, including Ammon and his brother, and including those who stood with him, who understand what we're up against in terms of watching the erosion of the Constitution and the foundation of our country. There are great teachers. There's a gal, I can't remember her name now, Chris Ann, I think is her name, that I've just become acquainted with, not personally, but just online, who's doing a great job in teaching some principles. But we're retreading down a path that has been trod many times, my friends. You go back to Barry Goldwater in the 1960s, you could take the speeches about what was going on at that time, you could plug them into the front pages of our newspapers today, and there wouldn't be any difference. There's nothing wrong with these groups. I have great respect for these groups. I know many of the leaders of these groups. I'm grateful these groups exist, but we've got a bigger problem before us. We've got a bigger mountain to climb. Let me tell you my second story and then get back to that topic. I'm going to tell you another story. Years ago, I was privileged to meet a man who's now an ancestor to my children. I was pleased to meet Dr. Cleon Skousen. And I don't know if you've read his books. If you haven't, you've got to. I would suggest you start with The Naked Communist. And whatever you think you know, whatever you think about the word communism or anything, I highly recommend. It's like $3 at the bookstore. Go get it. It will rock your world. Read it in the next day or two. It will rock your world. Anyway, I'd come to admire Dr. Skousen. I didn't even know he was still alive, to tell you the truth. And some friends of ours invited Les McGuire and I to go and visit with Dr. Skousen. And here's a man who'd written 50 books in his life, just because it's old. It's been in the bookstore for a long time. You can get a new one, too, if you want to pay $20. But you can get a used one at a bookstore pretty much anywhere in the country, or go on Amazon and get a used one. So I met Dr. Skousen. When I met Dr. Skousen, he was in his 90s. It's called The Naked Communist. Not to be confused with the naked socialist or the naked capitalist or any other naked people. Highly recommend that. He also has written books that you might have heard of: The Making of America, The 5,000-Year Leap, The Majesty of God's Law. He's written a whole slew of Christian history books. He's written a whole slew of Mormon history books. He's written a whole slew of books on prophecy and revelation. He's written a whole slew of books on law enforcement and on politics. He's a former FBI agent in the J. Edgar Hoover administration. He's a former chief of police out here in our neck of the woods. He was a former politician. He's a lawyer, a constitutional scholar. He was a bridge builder, building bridges between the religious right and the intellectual libertarians of his time, rallying everyone around the cause of the Constitution. He lived at a time when the end of his life, his mission was to stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. He was personal friends with people like Ezra Taft Benson and J. Reuben Clark, who taught people to stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. And when I met him, I was so anxious to meet him. And I'll fast forward because I know some of you have heard this story from me before. But after about an hour of visiting with him and doing all the things you do with old men who are famous and popular, and you shake their hands and you sign their book and you do all these things, I got egged into a conversation with him. And my friend Les said, "Dr. Skousen, Rick has come here with a question for you." And quite frankly, it's a question some of you have come to this Periscope with tonight. That's why I'm sharing the story with you. Hello from Russia. My friend said, "Dr. Skousen, Rick has a question for you." Dr. Skousen said, "Rick, what's your question?" I said, "Dr. Skousen, I've read your books. I'm fired up about what's happening in this world. I'm fired up about the battle between capitalism and communism. I'm fired up about the difference between abundance and scarcity. I'm fired up about the connection between economics, prosperity, and freedom and liberty. I'm fired up about this real understanding of why the American Revolution was so powerful and why America became the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. I'm fired up about restoring the Constitution. I'm fired up about the principles of the Declaration of Independence." But I look around and I said, "Dr. Skousen, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, there's nobody winning." I sound like Donald Trump. There's nobody winning. We're all losing. When people like Ammon Bundy stand up, no matter how much faith they have, the bullets from the tyrants are winning. No matter how good the entrepreneurs are of our day that create jobs, the regulators, the bureaucrats crush them, and the successes are growing smaller and smaller. The average person's chance at the American dream is getting drowned out by political correctness and political incompetence and financial distress. And you look around and you start to ask yourself, am I kidding myself? Am I kidding myself? Can I really make a difference? Is my group of friends really making a difference? Are we really doing anything to advance the cause of liberty? Are we really doing anything to help people be free, be happy, be prosperous? Are we making a difference? And half of the people don't go far enough. They're not willing to pull up a gun and use a gun in the cause of liberty. And the other half of the people aren't willing to go far enough. They're barely willing to make a Facebook comment or engage in a conversation with somebody about a political principle. So the question tonight, my friends, is where do we go? What can we do to really advance the cause of liberty? And I wrote an essay. Some of you haven't read it. I invite you to go to freecapitalist.com and read the essay about the murder of Lavoy Finicum. In that essay, I broaden it out a little bit and talk about this topic, the cause of liberty. And I say something in that essay that I want to say to you here tonight. If you love liberty, I don't care whether you call yourself a patriot or a 3%er or a part of a militia or just a businessman or just a citizen who maybe is awake and alerted, I want to reach to all of you. I want to give you a real sincere invitation to wake up and turn your brain on tonight and hear me for a little bit. If you're genuine, it starts with a simple question. What kind of life are you wanting to live? You see, behind your politics, behind your profession, behind your economics, there's this unspoken and often unanswered question. When we look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what kind of life do I want to live? What are you willing to give for the life that you love? What are you willing to give for the people that you love? And the person, and many of you can attest to this or you wouldn't be on here, if you sincerely ask that question, you will find yourself led to liberty. Because freedom is indispensably linked to prosperity, which is indispensably linked to peace. And the three desires of humankind are to be free, to be prosperous, and to have peace. But we live in a day and age where we've been trained and educated that we look for people or institutions or governments to give those things to us. But they cannot give those things to us. And those who say they can give those things to us are liars. And so it's tempting when we don't know what to do to get caught up in a militia movement. It's tempting to say, well, give me my gun. I'm willing to drive up to Oregon, and I'm willing to die with these people. And I will tell you there's some truth in that. Because sometimes liberty does require guns. Sometimes liberty does require force and defense. Sometimes liberty does require getting in your car with a group of friends who are willing to go support a cause at all costs. And it's tempting because also when you get up there, there's something to do. There's work to be done. There's people to engage with. There's people who, when you see them, you shake your hands. When I went up there, I'll tell you, I talked about this last night. When I went up there and I was interviewing Ammon and I was interviewing Ryan, and I met all of the people you now see mentioned in the news, almost all of them. There was this camaraderie. Because when you looked at each other, you said, I know why you're here, and I know why you're here. And so your weaknesses don't matter, your past and history don't matter, your strengths are what matter, values are what matter. Let's work together, let's build something together. And in religious movements, we call it the building of Zion. If you're a movie fanatic, you know, this idea of building a shared community. In the political movement, we call it utopia, or the shining city on a hill. You look to organizations that are making billions of dollars. You want to be the Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs or the whoever is in your age, the Mark, whatever. But here's the thing, my friends. Listen to a person who's had the experience of having millions of dollars literally in my bank, in my checking account, having cars, every car you want, having 15,000 square foot house, having popularity and fame and success to some degree. And I don't mean to overstate all that, but speaking from firsthand, even with all that stuff, you still have to look in the mirror. And you still have to ask yourself a hard question. What am I doing? Yeah, I'm having fun, sure, but that runs out. Yeah, this is neat, I've got power, but this runs out. Let's see, maybe time to take care of a few of these people. Hold on a second. Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to take care of some of this distraction. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, give me just a second. You know, some things on Periscope could do a lot better. Man, if you're desperate for change, you're in the right place. Hello from France. Hallelujah. All right, getting rid of them as fast as I can, guys. Give me just a few more seconds. For some reason, the comments are not all letting me click on them. All right, well, that's going to be good enough. I got rid of some of them. So, I see, there's one more. Yeah, you don't have to fear having kids. Let me just tell you something. I'm going to get back on that message in a minute. If there's one thing that can radically change your perspective in a positive way, being a parent is essential to your ultimate happiness. There's nothing like it. Do not be afraid. That is absolutely an amazing, wonderful path forward. Do it in the right way, follow principle, and use your mind, choices as you move. Hallelujah. It is, being a parent is the best thing I've experienced, hands down, in life. So, all right, now, there's still a few loudmouths over here that I want to get rid of. Give me just a second. Yeah, it's funny, I get the wrong ones of you guys. All right. If I see that name come up, you bet we'll handle it. Yeah. We call this looking glass living, my friends. These people who spew this out, they're frustrated with themselves, and all right. So you're gonna have to ignore some of that. Yeah, I know. I've been blocking a lot of them. There's just too many of them. So let me get back to this. You know, so those of you who don't know me, you do a little research. You know, I go from being super successful, where there's not a day where I don't have at least $1 million in my checking account, where, you know, I've got on speed dial all the politicians who are leaders in this country, leaders of major corporations. I'm able to fly around the country to do all these, what I thought are important things. And then, you know, overnight I get in this battle with the federal government, and through the media they start spreading rumors about me and my companies, and I battle them, and it turns into this long battle that breaks my family apart, destroys our fortune, under court sanction not to talk to people I've known for years, and you know, just the dichotomy of these two different realities. But having worked through both of those things, having come out on top of both of those things after experiencing, you know, great ups and downs, one of the things I learned, and it's something that each of you have to learn, that if we're going to come together in the cause of liberty, we've all got to be able to see very clearly. And that is, at the end of the day, you still have to look in the mirror and you have to ask yourself, how am I living? What kind of life do I want to pursue? What are the things that I want? If you study Napoleon Hill and the Laws of Success and 16 Lessons or Master Key to Riches or Think and Grow Rich, he's going to talk to you and he's going to reveal to you this idea of the master key in your mind being identifying first and foremost, what is your definite major purpose? You can go to Rich Dad Poor Dad and read Robert Kiyosaki, and he's going to talk about using the talents that God has given you to do good. No matter where you go, no matter which, you know, place you turn for advice, you can go to the scriptures, you can go to you know, the business literature, you can go to the political literature. They're all going to start, if you find principles, if you really want to succeed, if you really want to be part of moving the world, if you want to be part of a real movement and not just a pawn to some other tyrant's game or to some other group's ploy. If you really want to move the world, it starts when you look in that mirror and say to yourself, what kind of life do I want to live? What kind of life is worth living? What is the price I'm willing to pay for that life? And when you do that, you find liberty. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, where do we go from here? What are we going to do? How do we advance the cause of liberty? I even saw people last night telling me, I don't think it's possible. I think it's doomed. I think the tyranny in the United States is over. I don't think we can reclaim liberty. You got good people who actually seriously consider Bernie Sanders for political office because they don't understand history. Any of you who are advocating for Bernie Sanders, you don't understand the history of the ideas behind socialism because I don't think you're wicked. You don't understand the doctrine and the consequences of the principles of socialism. Similarly, those of you who, haven't worn out your infatuation yet with Donald Trump and think he'd be great for America, and, I know Phyllis Schlafly supports him. Listen, I'm not an uninformed person, but he's not a man of principle. He's a man of techniques. And in this country, we have followed a path where the people who've looked in the mirror for the last 70 years have said, I prefer techniques over principles. And so we've grown up in a world where we've been trained, taught, and educated to pursue techniques but not principles. And the problem with that is it hollows us out. And even when we serve noble causes, we don't get the fulfillment and the power of being successful. And again, going back to the experience I had up there in Oregon, there was this hum about the place because everybody was doing something and they knew that it mattered. And here's my question for you. Is the life you're living when you wake up in the morning, are you feeling like what you do matters? Are you feeling like you're loving what you do? I like what Gary Vaynerchuk says, where he says, stop doing shit you hate. Now, I don't normally swear. I was just quoting Gary Vaynerchuk. But, why are you living a life that's so askew of the talents and the passion and the drive and desires that you've got? Well, in the cause of liberty, it's no different, my friends. You know that voting is not going to change America. You know that. I'm not saying you should vote. I'm saying you can't have a delusion to think we're going to vote in another person and they're going to change America. It's not going to. It hasn't worked that way for the last century. You know that changing the Senate from Democrat to Republican is not going to change. You know electing Barack Obama is not going to change. He wanted, I know in the conservative world, how he wanted to transform America, fundamentally transform America. He just accelerated us down a path. Yeah, it has a more socialist bent than, but look at your life. The American dream. Ask yourself this: is the American dream closer within you today than it ever has been? Is the American dream closer to you than it ever has been? And in the cause of liberty, we've got to get real, my friends. We've got to look and say, well, what is it I'm willing to be interested in? What is it that I'm willing to be part of? Well, all right, boys, hold on just a second. I'm going to see if I can't solve some of that internet problem. Hang tight. I'll be right back just a second. All right. Yeah, I'm getting rid of some of them. Hang on just a second. Yeah. There's a metaphor here, my friends. This is like life. Every day when you're on Facebook or you're trying to work, you get all these different things, and most of them have nothing to do with anything. Most people who you're listening to, their opinions are worthless. Look at the people around you, even the people you love and care about. Most of their opinions aren't worth much because they haven't invested very much. But if you want to be involved in the cause of liberty, the answer is you've got to invest more. Let me tell you, I have nothing but love and respect for Lavoie and for Ammon, but what they were doing up there, at best, was an iconic lesson. Because what is needed, and I want you to think about this very carefully, what is needed for the cause of liberty to triumph in America... Close chat. Can I close the chat? Okay. Let's try that. Let's see. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to do that. All right, hang tight. All right, you guys, we'll try to do part 2. I'm just getting hit so hard, I can't reset this. So just stay right there by your phones, and I'll restart part 2 to this Periscope podcast. So hang tight. Yeah, I know I was swiping, Brad, but it's something's hitting it so much it's not responsive. It's the delay's just not able to do it. So we'll do part 2 of this. Hang tight.